bit about us. We run a sort of kitchen garden store in Goa, and we teach people how to grow their own food. But we are really excited to bring you this session because this store that I'm mentioning, which is called Green Essentials, actually started because of this lady we have here today speaking to us. And I am not trying to flatter her when I say that, because our journey into creating Green Essentials started when Yogita and I were gifted, I think for our first anniversary, one of Poonam's composters. So it was a Chota Khamba at that time. And it came to us by road from Bangalore via a friend who picked it up and gifted it to us. And I think Yogita decided that it was just so amazing that she needed to figure out a way to promote it here in Goa. And, Yogita's excitement tends to be infectious. And, she was like, yeah, I'm just going to start selling these. And then what happened was I looked at her and I said, but we need to have a store or something to sell these. Her idea had been to sell right out of home. And I was like, yeah, no way, that's not happening. So anyway, we ended up starting Green Essentials and of course composting at home also at the same time. And eventually we ended up doing a lot of kitchen gardening too. So we'd like to thank Poonam for that. Poonam, other than being this person who's created an amazing tool for those of us as individuals who care about our own waste to actually deal with our own waste, is also one of the most amazing human beings that I know. So yes, I know I'm sounding like a bit of a fan, but it's true. And we are super happy to have her here and trying our best to embarrass her before she can get started. Right. So um, so in this session, what we suggested to Daily Dump and to Poonam is that composting is something that is really, really something that a lot of us have suddenly got interested in since we are stuck home. It may be because we are stuck without compost in lockdown. It may be because suddenly we realize that this kitchen waste or our household waste is something we want to deal with. So we are going to do two sessions. One session, this one, is about composting at the household level, what you can do as an individual or a family. And next Thursday, we are planning another session, which is about composting at a larger scale. If you are, say, a workplace with many people there, or a housing society which wants to, cut out how much waste is actually going back into the landfills in the city, uh, leading to a cleaner environment. So, without any further delay, I will just request, what I'll do is I'll just start with a simple poll, which I'd request you to sort of answer before we get started into the session. We'll run a few polls, as time goes along, just to get some feedback and understand what your personal challenges are, right? So if you can just take this minute to please respond to this before I hand over to Poonam and start the session. So the question is, what scares you most about trying composting? And I think scares is the appropriate word, because we've had people come to us with, you know, a great amount of trepidation in their expressions and voices. And like most other things, I would say it's easy when you know how, but we'd love to get your feedback here too. Other than Poonam, we have a couple of our colleagues from Daily Dump here also. Uh, One is Vinita, who has helped us put together this session, and we also have Kiran. So Vinita and Kiran and also Yogita will be putting together your questions. Please feel free to put in your questions when you want to. If you're watching this session on YouTube, then you can comment right there and we'll pick up your questions or respond to them over there. If you happen to be using Zoom, I can see there are several of us over here. Then just go into the Q&A tab that is at the bottom. It's like two speech bubbles. There's the Q&A button right at the bottom of your interface, and you can enter your questions in there. Okay. All right. Okay. We are only halfway there. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Please, if everyone can just answer the poll. Okay, so I'll end the poll now. Thank you for taking the trouble to do that. And I will now pass on to Poonam.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful session. Karan, of course, has embarrassed me. But I would like to say that it is an honor and pleasure to be part of Yogita and Karan's lives because they've enriched it as much as they say that I have enriched theirs. And at a time like COVID and post COVID, all of us are suddenly appreciating all the relationships we have. And so, very grateful, Karan and Yogita, for being part of your journey and you guys being part of Daily Dump's journey. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure having to do this with HasGeek. And my colleagues Vinny and Kiran are there to answer questions. Um, and I'm already seeing a lot of questions pop up in the chat window. So we will answer all of them. I promise we will answer all of them. So just hang in there. I also assume from the tone of the questions that have already appeared that many of you have actually tried composting. But there may be, so I'm going to ask quickly on the chat, how many of you have not done composting at all? So I get a sense of how many out there actually this is the first time. How many is it the first time? Or you can raise your hands or just say plus plus at the chat thing so I get an idea. Right. So are there many of you the first time? Okay, there is one. Any more for the first time? Okay. All right. So we are getting some, yes, okay. So there's a lot of first timers. So all the people who've tried it have failed and you have those questions. We will come back to you slightly later during this presentation. I'll start from the beginning because that's a great place to start. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. And I want to take you through the journey. My background is I was trained as an industrial designer from NIT many years ago. And I was very interested to see, okay, can this large, messy problem like waste, is there something that design can do? And that's where I was coming from. Of course, I didn't like the mess. I love cleaning. So with this combination, I decided, okay, I've got to figure this out. So when I actually got into it and then looked at the waste and traveled and met so many people, visited so many landfill sites, I've put together this very simple extract of our journey. We all want a clean city. Everybody wants it. There's nobody I've met who said, I want a dirty city, I want a dirty country. But then why is it still dirty? So our research actually showed that it's dirty because about 40 years ago, whatever we put together and threw it away was mostly natural and biodegradable. The minute we started using a lot of plastic, that story changed. So our habits were the same. We were throwing everything out and we thought it would become, there was not a problem. But what we didn't realize is that the materials had changed. And materials didn't behave the same way they did in the time of our grandparents. And so the key thing is in today's modern world, if we don't separate, we will not be clean. We put everything in one bag. And the other interesting factor is that when we ask people, do you know that this is why this is happening? They'd say, yeah, but what can I do? What do you expect me to do? I don't know what else to do, and the government needs to do something. So we said, all right, actually, what you can do is first you should know what the core problem is. And the core problem is if you actually look at your dustbin, right? My dustbin, your dustbin, we open it out and we weigh everything that is in the bin on a daily basis and you do a math kind of thing over the month, you'll find that the average dustbin is 60% organic in weight, not in volume, but in weight. So that means every Indian is throwing out this poison bag every day. It's poison because you are taking tomato and your khara dhanya cuttings and your onion peels, and you're mixing it with plastic or a battery or a sanitary napkin. If you mix it, it becomes poison. But if you keep it separate, then you have a chance to recover some of it and you do not have so much poison to transport. And what we were doing, we were spending taxpayers' money to take all these poison bullets, take poison, transport poison, and dump poison. So I said, God, this is ridiculous. I mean, there must be a better way of doing this. And so I never knew anything about composting. I remember biology class where we bisected or dissected, whatever you call it, a cockroach or a butterfly or something like that. I don't even remember. That was the extent of my knowledge of nature. And composting actually got me started. And that's why I tell everybody, you know, and today, this World Environment Day is the theme is let nature reign. Make time for nature. Especially at the time of COVID, we're all realizing we've just messed with nature's balance. So this is a reminder, and composting is a great way to reconnect with nature if you've never connected with nature. So what I did was I started learning about composting, and I discovered, my God, this smelly stuff becomes like this rich black material, and it's very good food for plants. And then I was so excited. I asked people, I said, you can do this in your house? And everybody said, no, are you mad? Why would I keep waste inside my house? There's no way. It's unhealthy. And I get all kinds of bugs. And so then I said, this has to happen. I mean, that's when we designed India's first home composter. And I had done some work on actually understanding what sustainability was and was teaching at that time design. And I said, okay, I need to make a composter that will fit India. And that's why we created our signature terracotta composter. And the other waste, if you keep this organic waste out of landfill, I'll tell you about composting, but I just want to cover the other parts of the waste that you generate at home. The other waste, that is like your paper, your plastic, your any metal, glass, all of that is usually recyclable if you keep it clean and dry, and make sure that it reaches the recycling sector. And yes, India does have a great recycling infrastructure, have lots of people doing this, lots of jobs are dependent on this, and it's very important for us to keep this clean and safe for them, because they actually have to put their hands in to separate this. So if I put a dirty sanitary napkin inside my newspaper pile, it's really very difficult when you see people sort it and have to deal with your mess. So being mindful about keeping this separate is actually our understanding that there are other people and we need to be a little careful on what we throw out for them. Um, and whether it's a person or it's water or soil, everything is important. I mean, we put all kinds of stuff into our water, all kinds of stuff into our soil. We don't realize that that is finally going to come back and bite us. And the important thing also, we are realizing, if after all these years of work, even children don't understand this connection. They're able to articulate it in their words, but they can't understand and connect with it as a practice in their lives. There's a gap over there. And that is something that we all have to constantly remind ourselves about. So there is this this hazardous waste, which is either your batteries, your medicine, paints, all your electronic material. All of that needs, again, to be handled very safely. Sanitary waste, now because of COVID, there is a lot of legislation being put into place because to have proper medical waste and sanitary waste handling. But we had not put in enough infrastructure. We had not spent enough money in managing this pipeline till now. That is the hard truth. That's why it's very important to make all the switches. If you're using sanitary napkin, please change to either a completely biodegradable napkin or a menstrual cup or a reusable cloth bag. If you're using diapers, become part of these large groups that are forming all over the urban centers, where mothers are supporting other mothers to use cloth diapers instead of these disposable diapers. So there are solutions emerging, and it's very important that you be part of it because it really matters. And you should only give about 10% to the landfill every day. So take a minute now and just ask yourself, how much of this do I do? And how easy is it to do? How much can I do easily? And in my house, I am able to throw waste out at 10% once in 10 days. I don't have to throw it out every day because I manage keep everything separate. And of course, I compost. So for us, it's also what we've learned is you can provide the technology, but it's very important for us to also change our mindsets. If we are putting government and tax money into big uh, waste plants, very often we find those waste plants nobody's maintaining properly. And then it becomes expensive to run them. And it becomes expensive to cart long distances. No, truck drivers don't want to take such long hauls to put waste into some village somewhere. Then the villagers over there get upset. And they say, why the hell are you dumping your waste in front of us? So it has to become decentralized. So along with the technology, we have to do a lot of work in mindset. How many of us actually have inside? Already I see in the questions, people are saying, I'm scared of bugs. So when I started, I will tell you a story. There is a black soldier fly maggot that comes in composting. And I didn't know anything about composting. So one day, and it was during the rains, I was doing all this experimenting, and I had no clue. Okay, and I'm not one of those very scientific kind of people, so I don't go deep into research papers. I don't know how to read them really well, and that's Vinita's forte. Vinny's sitting here also. She's our go-to researcher, and so when I was experimenting, I didn't know that this black soldier fly maggot can multiply like really. I mean, they'll be like swarming. They'll all be shivering. There'll be so many that are swarming there. And so they were all over my place. They were under my carpet. They were inside my printer. And at one point, my husband said, "Poonam, what are you doing? I mean, do you have to do this?" And it's then I realized, people are saying they're scared of bugs. I said, okay, now I really need to get to the bottom of this guy. And I found, which no biology teacher had told me, and I never knew that this kind of concept existed, that there were good flies and there were good maggots. And I was like, take it over. I said, wow, there is something called good maggots. They look so creepy. How can they be good? And that actually again started me on this journey of understanding why nature is so important. And I asked myself, I've lived for 44 years without knowing nature. I must be the most slow learner in the world. Um, and this black soldier fly maggot this suddenly made me understand that these bugs are part of this balance system, an ecosystem. So if the ecosystem is working well, you will not have a problem. And the same thing we're learning now with COVID. The virus is contained in ecosystems. You mess with the ecosystem, you have a problem. So our mindset to this should be, am I doing this within the ecosystem? Then there should not be a problem. Today's locust problem is also the same thing. We've we've messed with some balance, whether it's the hydrological cycle balance, whether it is the Earth's water retention balance. So if we start and understand that there's this system and it works in harmony when there's a balance, then we will not feel scared of a bug. Then our mind can tell itself that actually bugs are not a problem. Have I created the right ecosystem in my house where the composter is working well and all the bugs, the good bugs that are sitting there, are doing their job? And the problem will never become too big because it's only a home composter. The other thing is, how often do we think that if we throw something out and it's far away, we've solved the problem? All of us think that. But actually, how do you bring it inside your homes and make it visible and make it challenging? So that's what we try to do in our company. We try and make it easy. We say bugs are there. We make it visible. We talk about them fully. We say, see, this is the good things. This is how you control them. This is how, if you have a problem, we're there to help you. So we don't say there will be no bugs. No, we don't ever say that. We're saying there will be some bugs. These are the kinds of bugs, and most of them are very good bugs, and none of them are harmful. And this is how you balance them. And then again, the other thing is, people will say, why don't you make this this complicated? I've seen abroad, it's all closed in a box. You press a button and it'll become compost in 2 days. That should work. But India doesn't work like that. Our homes are not built like that. And even if you had to do that, it will cost you some 15,000 rupees to do it. And you don't know when it will fail. When I have a washing machine that fails, right? I have to run around and ask this guy to come and service it and service it. It's okay for a washing machine because you don't have to wash every day. But for waste, because you generate it every day, even one day you'll get irritated with the smell, or you'll get irritated with you have to throw it out, and maybe the guy will not come and pick it up. In many places in India right now, because of COVID, the waste workers are not coming to pick up your waste. So then you realize, my God, I need to be self-sufficient. I need to figure out what I can do to manage by myself. And yes, lots of people feel that it's not my job, the government should do it, large companies should do it, why should an individual? But the beauty is it's our waste, and sometimes we need to think about how we should handle it, partly. So, in fact, when Modi started his Swachh Bharat campaign, we had sent him this presentation saying that this is the 7-point program we think that's important to keep India clean. And we still feel that if India's people have to participate in keeping India clean, we have everybody to be on the same page. And that's what drives our work daily. We say, how can we make it easy for you to understand? How can we make it fun for you to understand? How can we help you actually become closer to making sure that you throw zero waste out of your homes every day? I'm going to stop here for a minute now, just to get a sense of any questions that we can take now before we go on to the next session. Okay, so I'm looking at the questions. Is the volume okay for everybody?
So, Poonam, I'll just read out some questions for you. Volume is fine. There is a question from Manisha Thorat, and she says that she had seen a video long ago with a compost pipe in the center of a planter.
Yeah.
And she's tried doing that, but I think it was not very successful. And successful, very specifically, she says that nothing seems to grow around. Is it that we cannot have composting and growing plants together? This is one question.
Yeah. So there are, in fact, you will see when you look at the internet, right? You will see many kinds of solutions, right? I will run you through some very popular ones. The pipe is a very popular one, especially in Kerala. And I also will tell you something interesting about solutions. Some solutions will work for you, some may not. They may work for other people. But fundamentally, please understand, composting is a chemical reaction. It generates heat. Okay, so when you have something that is generating heat and needs oxygen, right? So you have to ask yourself, if I had a pipe and if I put waste down, am I going to have the optimum decomposition happening? Because all the air is locked in. And once you have anaerobic decomposition, that means decomposition without oxygen, then there is too much of heat generated over there, which is not good for any plant growth. So it depends on where you've put it, how you've put it, how wide your pipe is. So if it didn't work for you, it most probably would have been because the ground below did not have enough sufficient nutrition, plus it was generating too much heat, the composting inside. And so no other plants would grow around it. The other very solution that keeps coming back to us is, can I grind all my kitchen waste in my mixie, add water into it, and directly put the slurry in my plants. There are some people who will swear that it works. So my thing is whether it works or not, it will definitely attract rats.
Okay.
So if you're okay with rats, then go for it.
Okay. There's another question, Poonam, which is, where Emma asks, do maggots always come with composting? Are they supposed to?
Yeah. So maggots will most often come with composting. There are some customers, for some reason, their diets and the temperatures that are generated inside that home composter do not allow the maggots to come. Then, in the sense, the maggots eggs are not formed. If you have temperature above 65 degrees, then maggot eggs don't survive, and no other eggs also survive. So it depends on your temperature. Maggots coming is very good because they're the biggest carnivores as far as food is concerned. They will devour all that food and make composting go very fast. What they release in terms of their smells, there's a certain kind of chemical they release which keeps housefly populations in check. So houseflies don't come and lay their eggs. Black soldier fly maggots are harmless. The flies that come out of black soldier fly maggots are called, they're the soldier flies. They have no mouth parts so that they can't carry disease. And because they keep away the housefly, which is actually the pathogen carrying fly, so composting actually then becomes a safe space. In fact, some scientists apparently have used black soldier fly maggots to control housefly populations in certain areas. So yes, maggots are very good. They are terribly irksome if they come out during the monsoon. How to keep maggots inside? Make sure it's not very wet. Make sure there's enough food, and then they will not come outside. In case your maggots are coming outside, you can create a moat kind of thing. Kiran has done that in her house. So the maggots go and just drop into the moat, and every day you can actually scoop them out and keep them under a tree. Birds love them. They're very good chicken feed also, very high in nitrogen. In fact, all over the world is moving to creating these maggots in large numbers, crushing them as nitrogen and feeding them to chickens.
Right. Poonam, we have several more questions, but what I'll do is that we'll line them up for later in the session.
Okay.
Also, if Yogita, Kiran, and Vinita can respond to some of those questions one-on-one while we are getting there, right? And then we'll retain the best of those questions to share with everybody else also.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so please go ahead.
yeah. So I'm going to quickly cover composting itself. How do you compost? What is the basics of composting? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So this is our site. Why I'm using the screen why am I using the site right now? It's because we designed the site so that you could learn from the site directly, and everything is always available for you. We also have a very active YouTube channel, so you can see all the films of our products there. But I'll start with basics of composting. So if you go to the learn section, the basics of composting are here. This is your kitchen waste. What all can go in? Your bread, your pizza, your cheese, leftover food. If it's not too runny, like means I can't put rasam inside, I can't put buttermilk inside, but I will strain off the extra water and put everything else inside. The only thing that cannot go is the hard coconut shell, and of course, no plastic. Absolutely no plastic. So this kitchen waste looks like this after about 17, 18 days. You will see the bones are still formed, the mango pits are still visible, leaves forms will still be visible. If you have a very thick part of the banana, which is that bunch part, you'll still see it. And this will be after 45 days after you have sieved it. You've passed it through a sieve. So this is basically the compost's journey. Yeah. And what are the aspects of decomposition that you should know? Thank God man didn't invent it. It's a natural process. It's nature's way of recycling all its nutrients. What starts off as food for something else becomes food for some other creature. So the apple that falls from the tree becomes food for all those little insects and microbes, and then goes back as food back to the tree. It's full of life. And I never knew that soil had life. And good, healthy soil is supposed to have life. Nobody taught me when I was in school. They never looked at, told me, look at soil. Look at this magic thing called soil. I thought soil was, I mean, it was not useless. It was not something you looked at. You just stamped on it every day. But literally, compost makes you understand that soil has life. And if it didn't have life, life on earth wouldn't exist. And it releases leachate and reduces in volume. And how does it happen? It just microbes are there all over us, and they start acting on organic matter, which is your apple, after it starts growing old. It's the aging process, and then it becomes food for something else because the microbial action happens. Uh, when it has oxygen, it has no odor, and that's because the chemistry, which I'll just show you, it generates heat. It's an exothermic reaction, and it needs the right mix. For composting to happen without any problem and happen effectively, you need your kitchen waste, which is mainly nitrogen. You need to add carbon, which is your cocoa peat powder, and I have some here in my hand. So this is cocoa peat powder. It is made in many factories along the coast in India, and you need the moisture that is inherently in kitchen waste, and you need the presence of oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, then you have a problem with the smell. So if it smells, then you just have to go and aerate it a bit and add some carbon, and your equation will balance out. There are many benefits of compost, and I'm going to not cover all of them because I'd like to go on to showing you how to compost at home. And the methods are, people will say, what is the difference between vermicompost and your compost? Vermicompost, so we do aerobic decomposition. Aerobic decomposition is you take your organic material, and we have a powder. Basically, it's cocoa peat powder. You add that daily. Daily. That's very, very important to remember. You have to put carbon daily, and we have enough oxygen in our products because we've designed them like that. And the moisture in the uh, organic waste itself gets released, and that makes sure that you get carbon dioxide on the other side of the equation and not hydrogen sulfide or ammonia. Those are the two smelly gases. That's why when we say, everybody says waste will smell. Waste will not smell. Hydrogen sulfide and ammonia smell. So remember, waste was composting itself does not need to smell. Anaerobic is when you don't have oxygen in the pile, like biogas. And vermicomposting is the same thing, but you have worms. You add worms to it. And because you add worms, you have to be very careful not to put too much meat, not to put too much lemon, and not to put things like onion peels, because it messes with the acidity of the pile and the heat. And worms will die in highly acidic piles or piles that have too much heat. So we don't recommend vermicomposting in our products, only because we believe that you should not throw anything out. Even lemons, you should be able to compost if you're not already using it for a bioenzyme, or you're not, lots of people actually take lemons, dry it out very well in the heat, and then grind it and put it into their dishwashing, material that they make at home. So there are many uses of lemons, but lots of people don't have time to do it also. So we suggest that they compost it, and that's why we don't suggest vermicompost. So you should start today. And our role in, if decomposition is a natural process, lots of people say, what are you doing? I mean, why should daily dump exist? So our role is to have people understand the process and adopt it in any which way. We don't say you have to buy our products, not at all. You can buy whichever product, but you understand that it is easy to do. And we've made this very easy for you to understand all the visuals in our site. And you can see and learn from it. And we are always there at the end of a phone call on WhatsApp to give you guidance. So I will just show you what we do in our products. So like I said, you take your kitchen waste and you add carbon every day, right? And this particular powder that we've got a special mix of, it has the microbes in it, it has some compost, and it has got cocoa peat. So you can just add cocoa peat and it'll still work for you. The What does the remix powder do? It actually does is absorbs the extra moisture. It makes composting stir-free. If you're using only dried leaves to compost, that means you take your kitchen waste and add dried leaves, because if you know, dry leaves are also carbon. But if you add dry leaves, they tend to compact and they take a very long time to break down. So the absorption power for water which is released is not as great as the powder. So therefore, you'll have to stir every day. Otherwise, the oxygen gets compacted over there and doesn't go in. And whereas with the remix powder, you don't have to stir at all. You just keep layering every day kitchen waste, powder, kitchen waste, powder, and you get very, very rich compost. And this powder itself is a great source of carbon, which is what you need for the microbial action to happen. And the resultant compost, because you already put the remix powder, it's friable enough in the sense that it's loose enough for you to directly put your seeds into it. And the beauty about remix powder is that it helps you get, even the first time beginner will get it right the first time. Whereas in the beginning, when we just started, nobody wanted to buy this extra remix powder. So they used to use leaves, and it was such a problem because they'd fail. And our remix powder contains some microbial activity. Now, some people have asked already in the questions, what can go in, what can't go in? How can I compost coconut leaves? So coconut is an amazing tree, actually. There's that part, that very thick part that is attached to the trunk, right? That is absolutely impossible to compost. You have to store it and store it, and a lot of people use it for fuel. The farmers use it for all kinds of other processing things that they sell it for. The leaves itself, just the thing where the broom comes out, the broom's thing, that also is very difficult to compost unless you cut it up. And nobody has the time to actually sit and cut it up. So the coconut itself is a very, very, very hardy plant. All parts of the coconut are very hard except for the coco peat. And this coco peat is what we use every day for composting. What you cannot go in is all on the right side. You can't put dead animals or their poop into it. Neither can you put their hair. Dead animals' hair also do not put into your home composter. If you want to compost your animal's poop and your animal hair, you must do it in a completely different composter, and you should keep that far away, and you should mature it for at least a year before you use it. Batteries and medicine you cannot put. Cigarette butts, newspaper, try not to put. It's got enough ink. Then anything on plastic disposals you should not put. What you can put is all your fruit and vegetables, all your cooked food, which I said you shouldn't be running. I put a lot of these bones of, whether it's fish bones, chicken bones, mutton bones, because a home actually doesn't eat that much and they remove all the meat usually. Tea and coffee you should put. Uncoated paper you can shred and put. Dried flowers, eggshells you should crush. All the seeds you should put. What you need to watch out for is compaction. While you're putting your composting in, just imagine I have a lot of watermelon. Now, watermelon is actually mostly water. So it will release all that water, and you won't actually imagine how much water it releases. So you may have put a little less coco peat. At that time, when you're opening the lid and again looking at it and you see it's becoming a little runny, you must add more coco peat and stir it in. So you're not allowing things to compact, because the minute things compact, there's no oxygen going in, and you want to avoid that at any cost. Acidity, I make sure that my husband has the musambi juice every day. So I make sure that I quarter all the musambi peels. I don't put the whole things, because if you put the whole things, they're highly acidic and they take longer to break down. And of course, size. In our big community composters, once I remember had gone to check, and I saw a huge watermelon. It must have got one dent or something. It got spoiled. The entire watermelon those people had put without cutting it. Now, if you do things like that, then it's going to take much longer to compost. So you shouldn't be surprised. So you don't have to cut it into very small pieces. Nothing has to be cut to very small pieces. Nothing has to be ground like chutney. But you can't put a full cucumber in your composter. It'll take up too much space. And B, it'll take too long to compost. So just cut it into at least quarters and chuck it in. Now, the other thing we tell people is trust your senses. You've got your eyes, you've got your nose, and you've got a sense of touch. You, by looking at it, and good cooks will tell you that this works, right? All the good chefs will tell you, I just have to look at it and I know whether it tastes sour or salty or whatever. So you'll also develop this sensibility. And we put all these photos up just for you to see what it should look like and sense like. This is about fresh waste when you just put in. You'll see, I use soap nuts at home to do my washing, and you'll see the soap nuts over there that are squished out. Um, and this is how, when you layer your cocoa peat, right? You should layer it fully. No waste should be seen. That's one way to keep fruit flies out. Fruit flies will come and sit on rotten food anywhere, even in your very clean kitchen. If you have a rotten banana, the fruit fly will come from somewhere and sit. And then you'll ask us, where did the fruit fly come from? But flies and eggs are all over, insects are all over. We don't see them, doesn't mean they're not there. So that's how your waste should look, completely covered once you have put your day's waste and put your day's cocoa peat over. As you keep putting waste and cocoa peat, you might see this white fungus. Now that is a very good sign. It means that your composting is happening optimally. If you see a gray or darkish, blackish kind of fungus, then you need to take action. You need to mix it up and make sure you add more cocoa peat and you add a little bit of microbes. So you get away from the bad fungus. Now this is what it looks like when I've just stirred it after 10. Filled the unit. I've got the compost. You'll find that the vegetable peels are still visible. That's my watermelon. Oh no, avocado, I think. Yeah, avocado. And you'll find the roots and you can still see it. So in 10 days, it's still, some parts of it are visible. It takes longer for it to start breaking down. Now this is a bad pile. This is what a bad pile looks like. And this is what I was telling you, the maggots. This is very creepy, right? If you're not used to this, you'll say, what the hell is that? But the beauty is this does not need to happen. It happens only when you don't know enough about composting. And even if this happens, if I went and put actually enough cocoa peat into this pile now and I mixed it in, it'll all kickstart again. That's the beauty. Everything goes back. Nature has this phenomenal code of making sure that it takes back everything that it gives you. So there's actually nothing wrong going to happen to that. It's just that we've not grown up in the rural areas, so we think these kind of things freak us out. But this is a great way to understand a little bit of the balance that nature has. Now, this is a healthy maggot population. So when you start seeing maggots crawling inside, yes, it's going well. All is well in God's world. Now, this is too dry. Now, the beauty about composting, like I kept saying, balance. Composting also teaches you balance, because if you make it too wet, you'll have a problem. It'll start smelling. Maggots will come out. If you make it too dry, composting will completely stop. Because, and I was very surprised. So I went to one scientist in Indian Science and said, what is this? I thought, it's dry. It should dry out. No. He's saying, no, water is life. On the film of water, microbes live. And microbes need to keep breaking material down to its basic elements. That's their job. So when you have something that is completely dry like this, you need to kickstart it. You need to sprinkle lots of water. You can add curd as an accelerator, or what you call a microbial activity starter. And it'll start living again. Microbes will come in, they'll inhabit, they'll start eating it up. They'll have a party. Now, this is too wet and smelly. You can see it's wet. There's a sogginess to it, and there's a kind of, everything is clumped up a little bit. So you need to add some cocoa peat powder. This is ready to sieve. It's become brown, material has broken down. And you know that if you sieve, you'll get one round. And whatever remains on top of the sieve, I put it back into the fresh waste for composting. And this is completely sieved. Now, a lot of people say, I don't have time to sieve. And I say, damn good, you shouldn't have, you should not actually sieve. If you go to this part And if I just took out some big bits by myself, there's a groundnut shell over there. I would just take that out. I would put that back into the fresh waste, and I'll just use this directly in my soil. I'll store it for another 1 month. I'll keep it moist, and then I'll use it for my gardening. I'll go to Green Essentials, I'll buy my seeds, and I will start gardening. So you don't really have to sieve unless you want to sell your compost. That tea-like consistency is actually only necessary when you sell or when you buy. When you buy, you want to see it like this, and when you sell, you have to, because that's what a customer wants. But the plants really don't need this. The plants are okay with the others. So that's how it looks like. Now, when you harvest compost, so when you start composting, today you start composting, you can start composting in a bucket. You can start composting in any container, but please remember the container should have a lid. And the container needs to have aeration holes. So I will go to our product after this, but let me start with testing in a bucket. For all the people who have not done composting till now, you take a 13-liter or 20-liter bucket, you drill holes on the sides. For drilling holes, you don't have to have a drill gun, nothing like that. You take a sharp object, like even your big needle or a screwdriver, heat it on the gas, and it'll go through the plastic. So you make these holes. Don't make holes at the bottom 1/3 of the bucket. Keep all the holes on the top 2/3. After you made the holes, you make the holes the gap of say this much, say this much. So like that, right? After you made the holes, you put your cocoa peat powder in the base. You put 4 fistfuls of cocoa peat powder in the base. You put your daily waste. If you're a family of 4, your daily waste will not be more than 1 kilo of waste, ideally. So you put that waste, and then you take another 6 fistfuls of cocoa peat powder and you layer it. Next day, do the same thing. If you want to do twice a day, no problem. You put your waste, you put cocoa peat powder. Put waste, put cocoa peat powder. If you put less waste than 1 kilo, you put less cocoa peat powder, but make sure you cover it fully. Yeah, clear? So you've taken the bucket, you put the cocoa peat powder, you put your waste, and you've covered it with cocoa peat powder. You do that daily. So today when you start, you will fill that one bucket in anything between 5 to 10 days. Once you've done that, you leave it. You mark your day when you start. The day you start, after 1.5 months, you open that bucket. In between, once a week, you open it and stir it up a little. Make sure that you've tested for moisture. The moisture shouldn't be too less or too much. So you've only opened it once a week. You've kept it closed after you've filled it. And 1.5 months down the line, you open it, it will be ready for compost for you to use, in the sense it's ready for you to take out, transfer into a sack or another container, and store it for another month, keep it moist. Why do we say store it? Because we don't know that we're not doing any tests to see whether it's completely become compost or not. I would not advise you to use it for vegetable gardening. If you wanted it for house plants, then it's ready for you to use, like indoor plants and all that. Once you do that and you feel, this is easy and I managed it, then you go buy whichever product you really want. It's as simple as that. Sorry. You put your waste, you cover with cocoa peat powder daily. If you just did this and didn't do anything else, you didn't add any accelerator, you didn't add any curd, you didn't add any fancy thing, you will still get compost. And that compost will be rich compost. So I tell people, you try it. If it works for you, and if you have any problems during this time, the maggots have come out, or they've got some bugs, or they're extra fruit flies, or they smell while you're doing this, get onto a call with us, 9916426661. We have a WhatsApp Dr. Khamba helpline. You send us a WhatsApp image of your bucket. You send us a WhatsApp message. We'll tell you, we'll do a diagnosis, and we'll get you going and confident. Once you're confident, I promise you, you will never give it up for life. You realize that this is such an important and very beautiful thing to do because you get very excited. And you say, wow, this is like too much. I can see this black gold. And it's a journey that you will always even share with other people. So I just want to show you this maggot shells look like that. Now I'm going to show you the black soldier fly maggot. So we also have, just for your information, we have a sapling test and a jar test. So if there are some gardeners who are very particular about when to use their compost, and they have better knowledge about what kind of, for the rows, they have this kind of additive. So if you're one of those ustad gardeners, you may want to test your compost before you use it. So we have these two tests. Please have a look at it if you want to see this. We tell you that even if you don't garden, right, that's very important. Even if you don't garden, composting is very important to do. And we've put together this fun set of 8 things that you can do with with the compost that you get. And now, people tell me, what will I do? I have so much compost. I said, but that's a good problem to have. No, you don't have so much waste, but you have so much compost. Throwing out compost is much safer than throwing out organic waste. It's safe for you, it's safe for your earth. And so think about it, it's a good problem. Second thing, what we've seen is the minute you put it up on Facebook or your Instagram, I have compost, lots of people will come to you and say, gimme, 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 gimme. And you can make new friends. That's what we tell people. Composting brings you new friends. And it does. I mean, seriously, it does. So let's see now our wonderful friend, the house fly, the black soldier fly. Yeah. So this is home composting. Now I'm just talking to you about all the problems that you can bring, right? You can get. It can be wet and smelly. We have answers to each of them. Too many maggots, pesky fruit flies, all the units are full, ants are everywhere. Lizards, a lot of people are scared of lizards, and sometimes what lizards have this phenomenal way. They'll sit inside your lid. So what we say is take a wooden stick and you hit it like this, then you open it and then it'll walk out. The rain has got in, nothing is happening, it's broken. I've got rats. The interesting thing about composting, composters don't put it on, just earth, because rats dig under it and then it topples. Ideally, place your composter on a hard surface like a concrete surface, in your balcony, in your terrace, anything that is, rats don't actually dig under. And also rats will be kept away if you plant a lot of mint, pudina around it. So all these doubts are answered. But this black soldier fly, this is what the maggot looks like. And a close-up of it is even more. To stare at it and say, okay, I am not so grossed out about this. Every day this is a meditation. Say, I'm not so grossed out about this. I can handle it. It's only small. It's big in the picture. Actually, it's that small. Yeah. But trust me, I've been there. I used to think they're very gross. But it's just something that you have to change your mindset about. And it's very, very easy to, it's easy to do over time. So what's amazing about the maggots? Manages all kinds of waste. It'll eat your chicken, fish, everything. It's very useful for feed. It improves the quality of the compost. It's much faster than vermicompost, and it controls the harmful fly populations. And this is what it looks like. The eggs are very small, it becomes like this. And if you see here, this is how the fly emerges from that. Yeah. And once the fly emerges, this fly is actually harmless. It lives only for 6 days and it dies. So that's why it's called the black soldier fly. So completely harmless. Now I'm going to show you quickly how to do, this is composting for kitchen waste. People are scared about the smell in kitchen waste composting. But there's another way of composting that are only for leaves. And this is not for coconut leaves. This is for every other kind of leaf. Yeah. Leaves are very much more simpler to do. They don't smell so much. Because if they put into our kind of leaf composters, this is our product. This is a leaf composter. These leaves actually are very, very easy to compost because you don't have to look after them at all. You just put them into this composter and daily water them. And because it's off the ground here, water percolates down into the earth. And over time, after about 6 months, you can open that door that is there and take out your done compost. And leaf compost is very, very valued for its nitrogen content. It's very valued for lawns because it doesn't have seeds of other vegetables like your home compost has. And so it's extremely nutrient rich. And you can put your twigs and clippings, flowers, dried leaves, everything. Ideally speaking, don't put too much treated glass and weeds and any diseased plants. All you need to take is your garden waste, put water daily, you can put accelerator, and you get leaf mulch and compost after 6 to 8 months starting. And we have films on how our products work. Of course, I've already shared that with you. And this is a very, very simple thing to start with. We have a range of products on this. And now I'm going to, before I go on to the next section of actually showing you our products, I'll stop for a minute to take any other questions, Karan.
Yes, Poonam. So, Poonam, what I'll do is that I'm just going to sort of send out a poll or two while
Yeah,
we wait,
yeah, sounds
and
good.
then in the meantime, if Kiran, Vinita, and Yogita can kind of put together those questions which they would like to have answered at this point in time. Yeah. So I'm just launching the first poll. This is basically coming back to the question you spoke about at the beginning, which is
Yeah,
how much difference do you think our individual action matters?
yeah. Great to
Sorry.
see what
Yeah.
the people say. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Makes. And I think in the context of where we are right now, and I think over the last couple of months we've seen that in the places where governments and larger agencies have struggled to cope, a lot of the stepping in and filling the gaps, and in fact the leading work has been done by individuals and groups of individuals. So if there was ever a time at which it could be clearly seen that individual action matters, at least from my perspective, I think that this last 2.5 month period has kind of demonstrated it uh, very, very powerfully.
yeah. And it's always good to also have a contrarian view. I'm very happy to listen to it. I One thing I've learned by, I mean, I'm not a conservationist by training, or I'm just an ordinary person. And at my ordinary person level, I'm so fascinated by nature, and one of the lessons I've learned is the diversity is very important, and having people with different kinds of views and just having the option to listen to them is also very important, especially in the work that we do.
That's true.
So,
No, absolutely. uh, so I'll just give it another minute while people are sort of answering.
yeah,
uh, I think I'll give you a couple of questions that I'm seeing here.
yeah,
One is that Parvati says, I have a lot of coconut husk in my home in Kerala.
yeah.
How do I use that instead of cocoa peat?
Yeah, coconut husk
Would it work?
actually, yeah. So coconut husk has a string of fiber that actually, in fact, on YouTube, there are many films on how to make coconut powder from
Mhm.
coconut husk.
Yes.
But basically, there's a very thin string which needs to be removed because that's a very fibrous string and that takes very, very long to compost.
Mhm.
So people have to crush it or they have to pull out that fibrous bit and leave that string. And in fact, that particular string is used for coir mattresses.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think relatively, I mean, in terms of breaking down quickly, that would not happen
That will
nearly in the
not
same
happen,
way.
yeah. And it won't absorb also. It won't absorb your water. That's what you need, right? You're
That's
putting cocoa peat for two reasons. One is that you're putting it for carbon and you're also wanting to absorb the extra moisture and keep the moisture balance.
Right. So I think Shiv says that is it compulsory to stir the compost once a week? I think your answer was if you're using coco peat, you don't even need to do that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if
but
you're using other materials,
I would definitely say that once a full unit is filled,
hmm,
then it's a good thing to stir it.
right,
Every one unit. So that means it can be a 20-liter bucket, 15-liter bucket,
hmm,
whatever one unit is, because you're going to be using many units. You will need at least 4 units at a given time for a family of four.
right,
Yeah, to handle your volumes of waste and the cycle of compost, because compost will finish in 1.5 months,
right.
and then you need space again. So that's the logic. And
So
one of the things that I find most people can't get used to is this continuous process thing.
that's
uh,
right.
and it's like remember the first bucket you filled,
Hmm.
that you take out 1.5 months later, and then it keeps going like that. And I'll explain the product use, I mean, later. But if you just had 3 buckets in a row, you
Hmm.
fill one bucket, you fill the second bucket, and you fill the third bucket, and by the time you finish filling the third bucket, your first bucket should be ready for you to empty.
I think we are the fill it, shut it, forget it generation. So
Yes, yes,
what
so
you're
that works.
suggesting is a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so another question that I see is from Sonika. She says, if I run out of remix powder, can I just add regular cocoa peat that I can get from a nursery or online?
Yes, yes, absolutely, you can.
Yes. One thing just to add to this is yes, this will fulfill the function of the carbon and absorption of water, like Poonam said. But the remix powder contains microbes, so you would
Yeah,
have to find a way to introduce them in other ways, either from kitchen waste itself or from EM or something like that, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
So that's important to do.
No, I mean, I
Uh,
think microbes also keeps your microbial activity uh, in good health. So
that's right.
microbes are always good to add.
That's right. That's right. So I think this may be a YouTube question. Somebody called Ramamanist. Uh, okay, it suggests, do we need to have 6 or 7 composters to manage daily waste? Waste, assuming the composter will fill in a week, and then we need to close it and let it compost, which will require whatever 6 to 8 weeks to be ready.
Yeah, so you're not 6 buckets. You need at least three.
Okay. So then these would work by rotation. So
Yes, yes,
as one got
definitely.
full, then you would move on to the next and move on to the next and so on.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, so I think I'll repeat that. A family of four will need at least 4 buckets of uh, 20-liter capacity.
Mhm.
Yeah, or 20 kilo capacity.
Mhm.
So not 20, about 15-liter capacity. Sorry, 15-liter capacity, 4 buckets for one family of four.
Right.
So you fill one bucket fully, then
Right.
you start filling the second bucket fully. After it's filled, you shut it. Start filling the third bucket, fill it, shut it. Go to the fourth bucket, fill it, shut it. By the
Right.
time you fill the fourth bucket and shut it, and
Right.
right when it reaches the top, take out the material in the first bucket to another container and start filling in that first bucket again.
Right.
Fresh.
So what I'm going to do is, Poonam, I'm just going to end the polling and I'm going to run another poll
Yeah.
that we have. Okay. So I'm coming to this poll uh, and running it now. It says, do you think decentralized composting is an important way to manage organic waste for our country, especially I think in our cities?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one clarification, Poonam. I think when you were speaking earlier, you
Yeah.
talked about the use of fresh compost being okay. I think you were referring is saying it's okay for ornamentals, but
Yeah.
perhaps not for food plants.
Yeah, I'm
Have,
saying because yes, for food plants, I would always recommend that you mature it for another month.
yes. So we basically put it in a container somewhere cool, dry, and
Yeah,
kind of
keep it
let it
moist. Yeah, yeah,
keep it a little moist and
moist. Yeah,
make sure that the
yeah.
entire decomposition is over.
Yeah, yeah. It's like looking after your achar. Now you keep it, ठीक let it be there for some time. It'll become nice and mature and like a wise old person, and then you use it.
Right, right. Okay. So yes, I think we've got a lot of responses to this. I'll just give it half a minute more and then we can move on with the next segment of your presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
In the meantime, there was one question from Mr. Vijay Kumar who was asking how to compost coconut tree leaves. Please guide.
Yeah. So that, like I explained, Kiran, the coconut tree leaves are very, very. They don't want to be composted fast. They are saying, "Please let me be." The leaves are talking to us. They're saying, "We're very hardy. We are a coconut tree leaf." So it's very, very hard to compost coconut tree leaves easily, and especially I don't know, Mr. Vijay Kumar is there on this thing. No, will you share where is it a coconut tree plantation that you have, or is it only one coconut tree that you're talking about?
I think that might have actually come from YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube. Okay, okay.
So we'll try and figure that out. But I mean, coming from the other end, assuming it may be either a plantation or a home garden or something like that, I think one of the things is that just because you cannot compost it very fast does not make it. I mean, I still think it's a very useful thing to have around the garden.
Yes, yes,
All
yes,
organic matter ends up being helpful around
yes,
a garden or a
yes,
farm. I
yes.
think mulching is where I would use it, and it is frequently useful in places where you need something heavier, in
Yeah,
windy places especially,
yeah, yeah,
or where there's heavy flow of water.
yeah.
So what I might do is that I may incorporate my compost into the soil and then cover it with this heavier mulch, which kind of holds things down,
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea, Karan. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. It's
I'll do
very
that.
good for mulch. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
exceptional, really.
yeah.
Uh, okay, so okay, I'll one more question. I was just going to bring this up. So there have been several people bringing up the question. What will happen in the monsoons? We are apprehensive about how our compost piles will be doing at that time.
Yeah, so our products actually are monsoon proof. Anything that is enclosed is monsoon proof. You won't just have, we have all our customers actually keeping our products out in balconies. And all you need to do is cover it with a plastic sheet in against very, very heavy rain. But composting actually happens, continues to happen. It just, I'm telling you, composting has got a balance if those three things are in correct order. It means your nitrogen is correct, your carbon is correct, and your oxygen is correct. Then the heat is actually generated by the microbes. So the microbes will come only when the balance is correct. It's like the protein and carbohydrates that my body needs. I have to
Yes.
have the right amount of protein and I have to have the right amount of carbohydrates. And
Right.
if I have both, then I can do all the exercise I need. So that's the same logic is there for microbes. So if the conditions are right, the microbes will do their job. They'll generate the heat, and it's really not so dependent on ambient temperature. You'll find even abroad, if you're putting the right matter, the heat is getting generated. And there are experiments where in cold winter they've used composting to generate heat for people to sit around.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so the important thing to remember is composting is its own heat generator. It doesn't need the outside so much. It's about the inside.
Yes. No, and as much as some people there must be thinking it's sounding like half a chemistry lesson,
Yeah,
I think when we are actually doing it, you realize that if you're just doing two or three things right,
yeah,
regulating the moisture, ensuring aeration, and ensuring that you are keeping your microbes health high, if you just concentrate on just those three things, I think in many ways you have all the other processes working for you in the way that you said.
yeah,
Temperature happening, solving certain problems there, less incidence of bugs and creepy crawlies and so on and so forth. And again, coming back to the context of apartments, like I think composting is something that people understand and do pretty okay with when they have big gardens and spaces outside. But when you're in an apartment, that's when I think a lot of the lessons that you're talking about suddenly become important, and our understanding has to be at a higher level.
yeah. I see a question here which I think I'd like to answer is how do poor people do it?
That's right.
Community project is more feasible. Any suggestions? So
Yes.
I'll make one thing a little. I will unravel this a little bit. Poor people don't waste food,
Yes.
and so they don't really need to compost in that sense. Whatever they even what they waste, what I've seen is, even I've seen, forget poor and rich people, there are people who don't waste There are they know the techniques of using rind and skin peels, and like I had my grandmother who would use everything.
Absolutely.
She
I
would,
think all the grandmothers.
yeah,
Yeah.
she would take everything that is even a peel that we throw away and whatever's rotten, or we'll take one tomato and we'll say something is wrong with it, and she would put it into a soup or a stock or something like that. Yeah. So there, it's a, again I'm saying, what I, what we've learned is it's a mindset thing. There is a whole, this is not about poor and rich, it's about what you're throwing away, have you used fully what it is, and whatever you're throwing away, is it uh, is it something that you can reuse, or is it something that you have to go to a landfill?
Mhm.
That mindset shift that all of us have to happen. And yes, of course, community composting is a very, very important thing, but I feel that there are, like, I've met poor people who have planted all their little onions peels, which are really actually have nothing left in them, into
Mhm.
that plant.
That's
Yeah. And they don't waste anything else. They don't have the luxury to waste food.
and
So, and they understand some things, or they have a way of looking at the world is slightly different from us. But communities, that means if you have, say, like a very a dense urban space which has got a lot of offices and things like that, yes, you need to collect the food waste from there. You need to have a community space to put it in. And community spaces, again, the question is, who will look after them? Who will pay for them? Who will
that's right.
maintain them? And that
That's
we don't have enough civic sense, I think, yet in our country, but we need to get there.
no. I think also what you said about mindsets. I think uh, another thing Yogita and I often observe is that if one is not aware of the fact that a lot of the mindsets that people who work for us or people economically maybe less fortunate than us have are actually absorbed also from contact from us. So in the cases where their their views on waste may be similar to our, or their behavior, or at least about certain kinds of waste, right?
Yeah,
It usually comes from their interactions from with us and our mindsets.
yeah, yeah.
So like one of the things, small example which I'll just before we move on
Mm,
quickly kind of mention is that
yeah,
as soon as you say that you're willing to dig your hands into your composter and solve problems that happen there or put waste there,
yeah,
that is the second at which your household help, for example, says
yeah,
that no, 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 no. Up
yeah.
till that point they may say no, I'm not going to do it. And
Yes.
then when they see you're willing to do it, then suddenly they are like, yeah, okay, now you know what, I'll do it, don't worry about it, you know
But
and
that's the other reason why we started this, because I really feel, my father taught me that work is work.
hmm,
There is nothing called less work.
or dirty work.
Yeah, there is nothing called dirty work. Nothing. And I felt that this is one of the things in India we don't have.
Absolutely.
And therefore I said, and people ask me, why didn't you make this for the poor people?
Right.
I mean, in fact, when I went abroad, one of the things was, you should make this for poor people. I said, no. It's like there's a project abroad that says, we will make a toilet which has got a plastic thing that you collect for slums. I
Hmm,
said, no, we have to make it for the rich people.
hmm,
And only then will it's not a question of rich or poor. Everybody, and like you say, people are going to look at us and say, if you're educated, you're doing something, maybe that's right. Therefore, we have to do the right thing.
No, I agree. And also, I mean, just relatively speaking, there was, as you were saying, and I think what you were alluding to is that their waste footprint is like a small, small fraction of any of us.
Yeah.
And therefore, perhaps a smaller challenge in that sense.
And what we are seeing now in India, right? Look at all of them. They're just walking. And I'm saying India can walk, I say. I
Hmm,
can't walk from here to my house.
hmm,
People are walking. The child took her. It was just, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I think our country is so diverse
hmm.
that we must remember and do whatever we can. And therefore, composting is very important to do. I keep telling you, this is very important to do.
Okay. So just one thing before we continue with the presentation, Zainab is pointing out, she's our conscience over here.
Yeah.
So she's pointing out that we have questions even on the HasGeek page where people
Okay.
signed up. I
Okay.
think we'll come back to those and answer them, or after the session. Yogita, Vinita, we will answer those. And those we will certainly answer over there. So, Poonam, we can continue. Perhaps you
Okay.
want to talk a little
Yeah.
more about specific products so that
Yeah.
they make
Yeah.
sense to people.
So let's just go. So now we've talked about home composting with your kitchen waste. We've covered your leaf composting in your garden. And we've also talked about some of the basic problems that you can have while you're doing this. The problems are not many. They just smell, bugs, whether you'll get it right. Actually, there are only those three. Yeah. All three are solvable problems. This is not rocket science. This is not like sending a rocket to the moon. This is very solvable. We are here to help you solve it. So the now I'm going to actually go specifically and talk about our products. The first product I'm going to talk about is the home composter. We have a range of home composters, and the just one minute, give it a minute to load. Yeah. So we have a range of both plastic and terracotta. When we first started, we started with a signature terracotta range. My idea was to help potters earn a better livelihood, get more money into their hands, because this is a product that the urban environment wants. It's a utilitarian product. It's not a decorative product. And because it's utilitarian and it's going to be used on a regular basis, it may get more money into their hands and keep their skill and their traditional life. And over time, over these 14 years, what we've managed to do because of the work and because of how customers have responded so positively to it, that entire cluster in Telangana, the government has invested about 2 crores to set up a common soil processing plant for them, and they're doing pretty well. Of course, in this COVID lockdown, they're facing some problem with the orders, but they started supplying again, so which is a good thing. So this is the range of actually the terracotta range. We have basically three kinds of products. We have a stack composter. That means the units, like I was telling you about the 3 buckets or 4 buckets that you need, they sit one on top of each other, because otherwise people don't have space in their balconies. The balconies are very small. So this is just stacked. Yeah, but the principle is the same. You fill one bucket fully, then you fill the second bucket fully, then you fill the third bucket fully. And in the stack one, what happens is you empty out the first bucket into the last, it's like that extra place that you had, and start filling it in again. Then you have the row composting. So here, when you have larger houses and you have space, you keep this particular product, this lever pot small that my pointer is at, you keep this or this tiny lever pot in a row. So you keep 3 of them in a row or 4 of them in a row, depending on how much waste you generate. You fill one completely, then you fill the next one, then you fill that and the last one. And then by the time you finish the last one, this one is ready for you to use. So that's a row composter. Then there's the earth composter. The earth composter, the picture is not here, but it's called the Prithvi. And part of it goes into the ground, very much like the pipe composting. But there is a container that is half in the ground and half outside, and there's another container on top. This way, what happens is you can actually harvest the compost. And you need 2 of them in your garden. And those actually look also very pretty. And I will find a picture and I'll show it to you. So these are the 3 kinds of composters we have. In addition, we have a community composter. So you'll see here, these are the home composter range in plastic. This is called the chomp. Again, it's like a row composter. You add many chomps next to each other. This is a Gobble Solo, which is like a test kit. So if you're not very confident, costs only $600, you buy it, you try it out. A lot of people actually bought it, single bachelors, people who are living in PGs who want to try it. So we sell that product a lot to that profile of person. And then we have this Gobble Senior, which is for a family of 4. It's a stack composter, and Gobble Junior. Please note that the Gobble series and Chomp series are available on Amazon also. So you can directly order and they'll ship it to you. We also ship it to you, and you can order it from our site as well. Then we have one more thing. It's called the Puja composter. Lots of people in India do not like mixing because they have some tradition and some feelings around the flowers that they offer for worship. You can be in any faith, but the flowers that are usually offered for worship are not mixed with the other waste. And India has a tradition where those flowers were actually put into water streams. And I mean, in urban cities, where will you find that? So we created a puja composter specifically only for those. We call it holy compost. So we have, this is a Ganesha here, you will see. And here you can grow some plants around it. And here you can actually harvest the compost. There are 2 units. So this is called the Puja Rangoli and Puja Ganesha. So if I just go to this product, you'll see that this is how you use it. You put your waste, I mean your flower waste, you put a little bit of water and some microbes, and you get very good compost. And each of these products also has a film, which you can watch on YouTube. So I'd like to also share with you this community composter. This is a community composter, which actually takes large volumes. So a lot of flats all over India, apartment blocks, schools, offices, they have invested in this. And again, these also lined up. You can see, you fill one completely, then you fill the other, and after that is full, you can take this out. And this is done compost. And in Bangalore, we are able to actually buy back this compost from apartment buildings and try and see whether we can. And this particular session on what works, how do apartments actually manage it, what's the best way, will happen next week in the next webinar. So this is these are the kind of products we have. We also have like this leaf composting. If you are very keen to try it in your garden, we've done this for you, and you can actually download the drawing. If you're sitting in a city far away from Bangalore, we don't like to ship this because it's just shipping just air, right? So we made it easy for you. You can download the drawing here. You can get it made, fabricated in your local fabricator in your city, and make sure that you follow the dimensions in the drawing carefully, because you need to have it off the ground, and you need to have a very good door, sturdy door that doesn't rust over time. And keep using it. Please note, again, we have films for this on the site, and you can use it and you see all these people are using it in various places. And you have to keep pushing the leaves down as they go. And then when you want to harvest them, you open this gate, you water them here, you can see, and you get really good, very, very rich leaf compost. So I think I'll end here because I'll take questions about products. Please understand that lots of people will say, can't I just use dried leaves, or can I use sawdust? Again, I'll reiterate, it's all about how much water can be absorbed and what is the granular size. Sawdust, if you are using it from your treated wood, please don't use it, because you don't know what kind of adhesives are used in that or what treatment has happened. Use sawdust directly from the mill, which is pure wood sawdust, but it doesn't have the same properties as cocoa peat powder. So I'll take questions now, because now it's 5:49 and I think we're getting close to the end, right? Is it 6 o'clock, Karan?
Yes, we'll take questions now, Poonam.
Yeah.
And I think we'll need a little bit time for that.
Yeah.
So I'll just wait for maybe Kiran to pass on some questions. Yogita, Vinita, in case there's something on YouTube that you would like to send across, then we'll answer those too.
Yeah, sure.
I ended up answering quite a few of them already on the chats, Karan.
Okay. So, and maybe the ones that you think are worth repeating here, if there are some more, so that even others who may not have received.
Sure.
Okay. I think I see a question here about coffee grounds.
Yeah. Coffee.
Which is that coffee grounds from the coffee vending machine in the office, can we put it in the compost bill?
Compost bin, yes, absolutely.
I think with a lot of this, Poonam, I think it's about the quantities, right? So if you have to mix some into your existing composter, then it works very well.
Yes, yes.
But I assume that quantities of one thing.
Now, like if I had a coffee shop, right?
That's
and
right.
I wanted to compost only coffee grounds. Remember one thing, like I said about diversity, right? There was one farmer who told me, you have a taste, you want salt, you want chili, you want sour, you want, you have all the shades of taste. Like that, you have to feed the soil with all the taste. So only coffee, then the soil doesn't like. So
That's
you have to
absolutely.
have a mix. So,
I can give you another example. I
yeah.
think when we first opened our store, we had a bar next door,
Hmm.
and it isn't as seedy as it sounds to people outside Goa. But basically, people will come there and have a drink in the evening and have their snacks. And, prawns, of course, would be things that people eat. But if this guy had leftover prawns, he would dump half a kilo or 1 kilo of them into a composter, a kamba at this time, at the same time, right?
Okay.
And one would think that it would completely, go nuts, because I mean, this stuff was just, dumped in on top of whatever was in there. But we found that if it was managed carefully, we could incorporate that also by mixing in other waste, and by using something like remix powder, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
bokashi. That's
Yeah.
what we were using at the time.
Yeah. No,
So
no, absolutely. I think it's a question of how do you balance it off. Like
absolutely.
we have a bakery,
Right.
and what we do with them is, because there's only maida and all of that, right?
Right, right,
Atta. Now that doesn't compost; it ferments.
right,
So we add panchagavya.
right.
So you have to add something that will balance it off.
Absolutely. There is another question from Sheena, and she asks that I have a compost pit with a cover out in the garden. Will I have issues in the monsoon?
With a cover out in the garden.
Yes. If it's a pit, I think water would still seep in, because
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's Goa, I mean, you're just not going to be able to deflect everything out from the pit.
Yeah. No, no. If it's a pit which doesn't have a concrete base and all that, or
Mhm.
concrete sides and all, there's a problem.
Right. Shiv asks, can you put date seeds in the compost?
Yes, you can. You should.
Absolutely. Then Sonika says, I have the kamba. My biggest issue is emptying the middle pot in the bottommost pot
Yeah.
because it's really
Yeah.
heavy.
Heavy. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I not just keep rotating all the pots? I know
Yeah.
the bottom one is open.
Yeah. No, no. Actually, yeah, you're right, Sonika. In fact, one of the things I think we can do. Where are you based, Sonika?
I'm not sure, but she may be in Goa. I don't know.
Goa? Okay. Okay. No, I think
Mumbai,
that
she said.
Mumbai.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Then I think you should actually go in for the Gobble Senior. It's easier to lift.
It's a plastic
Yeah. Plastic.
composter. Yeah, much, much lighter.
Yeah.
Madhu asks, if maggots are on the lid, should I let it be or clean it up?
Clean it up.
Absolutely. Jyoti says, we stay in a flat in Mumbai and I've been composting at home for more than 10 years.
Hmm.
We use a wireframe box, which is 12 inch to in height with a mess inside for aeration. It's
Yeah.
kept on our balcony.
Yeah.
So he says we have a problems of a black bug that looks like a ladybug, which started coming
Yes.
out into
Yes.
our
Yes.
bedroom and kitchen, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Please
Yeah.
give us some tips about how
So
to
for
deal.
them, you have to take our standard thing is take garlic, green chili, and half a cigarette cut tobacco. Boil it
Okay.
up in 1 liter of water.
Okay.
Boil it for about 15 minutes, and then spray that. Dilute that and spray it every day for twice a day,
Right.
and then hopefully that should get controlled.
Which bugs are these, Poonam?
Actually,
Are
there
you
is
able to
one.
recognize them?
Yeah, I think there is one black guy who can be very, very, very prolific.
Mhm.
I don't know its name, but I have seen it, and I have seen it in some places, some customers' places. And I wish I was like, I had enough time to pick it up and put it in chloroform and go and get an insectologist to actually look at it and tell me exactly what bug it is, which
Okay.
we should do. In fact, if anybody out there wants to research project on it, please come and do work with us.
So maybe she can send us a photograph and that would help
Yeah,
us,
yeah, yeah. But
do that also.
if I know it's the same bug, there's one black guy who comes.
Right, right. So Viraj is in Bombay. He's saying I have an outdoor pit that I've made with cement walls about 4 foot by 4 by 5, I guess, feet. I put
Ah,
leaves and kitchen waste. There a way to speed up the process? I get a good amount every 4 to 6 months.
yeah. So Viraj, you should split that pit in half.
Put
If you,
dividers in.
yeah, yeah, put dividers in, and then you will be able to get faster because it's your volume is too big.
Okay.
Minimum, actually, the volume that you should work with in cities is 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. More than that, you will have 6 to 8 months return.
Right. Understood. So it becomes a modular composter in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Vinita is mentioning that it could be a type of featherwing beetle, just, I mean,
See,
as a
I
point
told
of
you, no,
interest.
please understand, Vinita is our researcher. Vinita is the person who has the brains in this company.
So, okay. So Jaypriya says, what does one do with the leachate?
So leachate has two uses. One is that you can dilute it and use it directly to plants. It's very good nutrition. Well, that's the best use.
Absolutely.
Or you drain it off into your drain and you clean your drain in the process.
Right. So there's another question which I think is being asked about disposable tea bags. Can these be added in?
Not if they're not 100% biodegradable.
Correct. But the tea bags, what do they use? Some kind of synthetic material sometimes?
Yeah, I would. I mean, right now, if you ask me, I can't tell, and we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now even the organic materials have these
yeah,
microfibers
yeah,
in them
yeah, yeah.
just to make them last longer. And
Right.
yeah, I think that becomes it. So I think we've answered. Okay, Aarti says, I'm using a Kamba for more than 10 years and I shifted to a ground floor flat recently. My Kamba suddenly started attracting cockroaches. How do I tackle it?
Oh,
It's
cockroaches.
unusual.
Yeah, very unusual because cockroaches don't like composting. Uh, okay, so then maybe the heat is not building up.
Okay.
You need to build up enough heat, and then the black soldier fly smell also the cockroaches don't like.
Okay.
So something is not going right.
So Neelakshi
I
asks
would
about.
suggest for no,
Sorry,
no
sorry, sorry. See.
for her ground floor flat thing, I
Hmm.
would suggest she places it on a stool, a plastic stool, heavy plastic stool,
Okay.
and then tries.
Okay. So one last question, which Neelakshi is asked about fabric. I think it's been answered, but uh, should that go in thread fabric? Should it go into the composter?
For what? I mean, why would
I
you
mean,
put thread in?
yeah,
Thread as in waste thread in.
yes, that way.
If it's a completely cotton, yes. Even
Okay,
our hair can go in.
yes.
Yeah.
Though I guess hair takes a long, long time to break down.
No, actually, it breaks down pretty fast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Fair enough. Thanks, Poonam. I think we'll stop there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that people have a lot more questions that we need to answer. I'll just kind of try and explain, how we can do that. So I think Poonam mentioned the Dr. Khamba helpline. So the number for that is 99164 26661. I think I have that right.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and basically you can WhatsApp your images here and have your compost issues diagnosed for you and solutions provided. Please note that most of you would have come and registered on the HasGeek page for this event. There is a section over there for comments and discussion. Please feel free to go on over there, list your question, and we'll come back and answer them over in a day or so. Most importantly, I would just request all of you to help us spread the word to building societies and maybe even office complexes about the next session, which is on community composting or larger scale composting. I think quite often what I've seen is that individuals have made this connection between their waste and are very eager to kind of start composting, but when they start interacting with larger groups of people, societies on which they may be dependent for cooperation, things kind of get stuck a little bit.
So,
So I think that this will be a session in which you can perhaps engage your society, or your friends can engage other societies, housing societies, for them to understand why it's important, and more importantly, I think how it can be done. Uh, and if we can get a lot of people to engage with this, I think that we can hope for cleaner cities. I'm sure this also applies to larger institutions around food, like restaurants, messes, and other places which produce, a lot of kitchen waste. I do know that we got a call, if I'm not mistaken, from Delhi or Noida, where the police wanted to find out, how can we compost our mess waste better. So this was a few days ago. Good to hear that question, and I hope we have them join us. uh, Thank you immensely for your time and patience. Thank you so much, Poonam, Kiran, Vinita, Yogita, for backing things up. Thank you most of all, Zainab, for helping us put all of this together, and Amog for putting up with us for a good 1.25 hours, because we have to rely on him 100% in order to make sure all of this works smoothly. uh, I would like to mention that Zainab, Amog are from HasGeek, who Poonam mentioned at the beginning. These are friends of ours who have pushed us into the digital domain at exactly the right time, I think, as the COVID situation happened, and have forced us to engage with people in this situation. I use the word forced very affectionately. Uh, um, I do not think that it would be possible for us to do this without them, and as I know, it is not possible for us to do it without Daily Dump also. uh, Great to see all of you here. I'm glad that there was so much enthusiasm and interest. And again, as I said, if you can please make it a point to pass the word along for the coming session, that will be the next Thursday. I believe the date is the 4th of June, and it will
Yeah.
be exactly at the same time, which is at 4:20 p.m. or so. 4:25 p.m. we'll get started. For those of you who have already participated on this session, you'll get an email from us in case you want to join. For those who, of course, want to register for it, they can go to the HasGeek page and do that. Okay, so thank you all so much for all this time and attention and wonderful sharing of knowledge by Daily Dump. Uh, have a great day and have a great week ahead of you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Poonam. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.